Hi, I'm Adam.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Chris.
And you're watching Flack.
All right, now that Obama has secured the Democratic presidential nomination, or effectively, a lot of people are taking a closer look at his electability. He gave a speech this past week that gave me chills and sent reverberations throughout the blogosphere. And I just wanted to read a quote.
Man, you are so punchy right now.
I'm looking right at Chris to try and get a response.
Oh, it's coming.
He's stony-faced.
This isn't going to be genuine now because I've already heard this quote once.
From Obama.
I got goosebumps last time.
You should hear it something like 20 times. It's amazing.
Dude, I'll close my eyes and try to recreate the experience. Go.
We will be able to look back and tell our children that this was the moment when we began to provide care for the sick and good jobs for the jobless. This was the moment when the rise of the oceans began to slow and our planet began to heal. This was the moment when we ended a war and secured our nation and restored our image as the last best hope on Earth.
Okay, can we, because we...
The last best communist hope on Earth.
This is actually try number 2. Beautiful. No, because I want to actually, I think we admit that maybe there's some overblown rhetoric there. But is anything profoundly untrue?
Absolutely.
What?
We don't...
The rise of the oceans.
The rise of the oceans, the global warming scare,
when we ended a war, the war is not going to end. And there's no way he's going to be able to provide more care for the sick and jobs for the homeless. So all of his claims are bunkus.
He could have just said, "This is the day when we try and socialize healthcare, when we put carbon tax in place, and when we, he could have." I mean, he's done a really good job of using poetic language to dress up what he really believes,
and I admire that.
And I kind of admire that too.
In my rhetoric class freshman year, my teacher confronted me with the question, "Chris, why are you a sophist?"
Okay,
it's because I admire overblown rhetoric so highly. I mean, above anything else. Austin has another article. Go.
Yeah. I think the thing that we admire the most about Obama is the thing that makes him unelectable.
Ooh.
And that brings us to part 2 of this particular episode of Flack. Naomi Emery writes for the Weekly Standard that Obama can't be elected, and it has to do with his political culture. It has nothing to do with his race. She makes a distinction between priests and warriors in the Democratic Party, between academicians and scoop Jacksonians. And she says that there's a deep divide between these two classes. Academicians traffic in words and abstractions. Warriors prefer men of action whose achievements are tangible. Academicians love nuance. The other class, clarity, fairness, justice, and academicians dislike force and find it vulgar, whereas Jacksonians admire it when it's justly applied. And she invokes the Adlai Stevenson campaign, which I think is very appropriate. She points out that America is a warrior nation, and even in the supposedly racist South, Americans are perfectly willing to vote for a black candidate, provided that he shows the grit, fighting spirit, and strength they admire.
How does she? I mean, does she footnote that?
No, she's
what I hear on the other side is quite a few people from the South still say that America is not ready for a black president. Not this guy's a pansy.
Right, and that's not even. And I used to say that, but not in a racist way. Not like I don't want a black president, but I kind of thought that. I thought he couldn't win originally during the primaries just because I felt like America wasn't at that point yet. I think this
is one of those divides that I think this is. Emery is a David Brooks-like writer, and she overgeneralizes, but brings up some really interesting. She does. Points.
Yeah, I still think a lot of that has.
I think
that spaghetti sticks to the wall.
I think that people in the South would, if they would not recognize this distinction in themselves, would not identify themselves in this priest-warrior divide, but are in it nonetheless. So even if people say we're not ready for an African-American president, their real problem is actually this, and not race. Her concluding quote is, Obama's problem may be less that he is running while black, then that he is running to be the first academician elected as president, a category that is 0 for 8 in national contests so far.
And that
he is peering into an abyss, not of bias, but a large Jackson hole of rejection by warrior voters, and the problem is more than skin deep.
See,
Chris.
Yes.
Go.
This is hard for me because I think that warrior presidents, or I think that warrior thing is apt.
Sure.
However, I think now more than ever we are poised to invite a priest into the White House. We just had the most barbaric of warrior presidents imaginable. Never before in our nation's history have so many people been educated, has so much information been floating around, has the international, more like erudite spirit, like we all know other countries hate us, and people on the left are more ready to reach out and try to claim some of that. I mean, we like to idolize Europe now. There's so much culture over there. There's so much more money over there. I mean, look at how the euro is doing. Look at how the pound is doing.
People are more refined and progressive and yeah.
So I think we're moving away from a warrior culture. I think the big question of this is, have we moved far enough away yet? And that's where the story is in this election.
Well, you have a perfect storm here, in my opinion, because you have some of the things you just mentioned. You've got a guy, McCain, who's like 80, 90 years old.
Well, the droopy thing.
Yeah,
in his face.
But he's still the quintessential
he
warrior.
Is.
So that's
he is, but there's so much against him. I think if people are coming in, especially if they're fresh voters. Not by that I don't just mean young people, but I mean maybe people who are interested because of all the things that are happening that might be voting for the first time in a long time, or are actually getting back into the political process. When they watch the debates, they're going to watch Obama tear McCain to pieces because Obama can do that. And I'm not a fan of Obama, but he's amazing in that way. He's going to tear him to pieces, and we're going to look at a young, fresh, academic, thoughtful,
other
likable
flattering
character.
words.
Yeah, other flattering words. And then this old guy who I think people, maybe this is just me. I'm assuming this, and maybe it's just me and I'm projecting it on others, but they're going to see him as essentially an old military figure who, that's about all he's got going for him.
Well, and the media, by the way, because we're all slaves to MSM, the media is getting more and more vicious in their attacks against McCain. I just watched Keith Olbermann go on a 10-minute long tirade like the high pitches of his aria of hate were, he on national television was shame on youing a party candidate. That's and we're early on in the cycle too. Right. That's saying
Olbermann
a
is
whole
pretty
lot.
amazing. He writes really well, actually.
I think. It was fantastic. But that McCain doesn't really have a whole lot going for him, and I think even the Republican talking points, which he's sticking to pretty well, are tired. Every time, whether or not I'm into universal health care aside, the defenses of those talking points, now that I see them, are pretty incredible. I mean, you hear the Republicans that are like, I think a free market is good, and the appeal to the Democrats are like compassion and things that are just much more appealing on a universal scale.
Sure.
So, I don't know.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
it really is.
Naomi Emory doesn't actually say that he can't or won't be elected. She was just pointing out what she sees as the challenge and the divide. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
All right.
Thanks for watching, Flack. Tune in every week at klaxon.com. That's KLAXN.com.